from concept down, I wanted that night in the library to be a really traditional locked room mystery, really in the tradition of an Agatha Christie, and then there were none. And I had been saying for a long time that I thought that someone should set a locked room mystery at a rare books library. I thought that would be a cool setting because they always have cool settings. I mean, Agatha Christie did it best, but um, Lucy Foley, who's writing right now, is a great example of someone who picks these majestic locations. And to me, the Rare Books Library is one of these majestic locations. They're often beautiful, filled with these artifacts. And like I said, they're spooky as all hell because they have these basements. They're often disorganized. So that was really where the concept started. The idea that I wanted it set there. And then I loved the idea of populating it with students. So just getting the grown-ups, for lack of a better word, out of there, because I wanted a collection of really bad decision makers. I've said that I think that humans are the most interesting sort of early on in their lives during those formative, 18 to 26 years where you just don't have the experience to allow for great decision making. And then not towards the end of your life, but you know what I mean, when you're kind of 50, 60, 70, and you have this accumulation of experience. So you know all the bad things that are going to happen if you make this choice, and then you make the choice anyway. I think that those two poles are the most interesting. So I wanted to write something at that earlier pole. And then so I assembled a group of characters that really really met the task of being terrible decision makers. We have that sort of classic undergraduate character who doesn't feel like they've fit in, hasn't found their people. We have the pompous, so that's Faye. We have Davy, the pompous one, who sort of thinks that he's the leader, even though he doesn't maybe know as much as he thinks he does. We have a character like Mary, um, who is a real star almost despite herself and really great at things, but is struggling with demons that maybe the people around her don't understand. We have a character like Soraya who's giving into these external pressures. We have Ro, who's the outsider of the group, doesn't have this the same, education. So there's, that little bit of a class divide. Umu, who's struggling in like sort of straddling these two worlds, a friend who's outside of the group but wanting into the society. And then Kip, who's, also a little bit outside in that he's a little bit older than them, but is, coming from money and privilege and lording that above those all. So I love the idea of the archetypes that you might expect from a campus novel, which are actually quite similar from the archetypes that you might expect from a traditional locked room mystery. So mashing that all together and creating something that is a lot of fun. I got a kick out of the idea, around the time that I started writing, my family took a trip to Greece and I was trying to hype my son up for it. So I bought him one of those like National Geographic for kids, little Greek myth stories. And so I'm reading these to him, and you're reading like the Persephone myth, and it's so interesting how they adapt those for children. Like they've really taken a lot of the good stuff out of here, or the scary stuff out of here. So I was thinking a lot about that, and I love the idea of the Eleusinian mysteries because we just know so little about it. So these kids gather in the basement to carry out this Greek myth that's supposed to free them all from fear. Some of them are more into it than others. You have the character of Davy, who's really committed to this. Some of them just want to party in the library basement, and this is an excuse for them to lock themselves down there and take some drugs, and that's okay too. So they have varying level of commitments to this. But really none of them know what they're talking about because we don't really know what happens during these rituals. And that's what these guys learn, that there's just not enough information to really go off of. So yeah, I thought that was a fun element, and it gave them an excuse to all gather down there. I do like the rules of an Agatha Christie mystery. Basic rules to me are that there has to be some sort of class divide between the characters. And it seems like there's rules for the first two deaths often. And the first death, which always happens very early on, it's the inciting incident, is often someone that almost everyone else in the cast has a motive to kill. So they're already a little bit of a bad guy. which makes it easier on you because they've, like when you're going down your cast of characters, they've done something or behaved in a way that it would make sense for a wide variety of characters to kill them. And I mean, practically speaking, it helps a little bit because your readers don't like them very much, so they're not too sad to see them go. And then the second kill is, it usually has two characteristics. First, they're often an outsider, and second, because they're often an outsider, they're often the primary suspect for the first kill. And usually, and I haven't quite mastered this, but Agatha always did it in a way that she would make the second kill in a way that made it clear that they couldn't have killed the first person. That's a harder trick to pull off. I don't think I've pulled that off, but those for me were the rules for the first two, and it actually got way harder later on. Now we're getting into kind of later in the book spoiler territory, because then I started to like some of these people quite a bit, and it was harder to decide who would have to go or stay.